Now, don't get too excited, boys. No one was more glad to land than Gambier Parry. He tore down the gangway and leaped ashore as if the ship was 2 days late, and he had an appointment with a Danish dame. Later on we see the reason for his impressive landing. Awaiting us at the quay were a herd or flock of buses, specially engaged by radio telegram. They were soon filled up, and so were their occupants later in the day. One party went east, the other went west, but on this occasion, although even in Denmark east is east and west is west, the twain did meet for lunch. So they set off singing, "You take the high road, we'll take the low, and we'll be in Hornbeck before you." Aha, the Danish Marines turned out in undress uniform, tin hats and bell-bottoms, an intense longing to lie down. John Dyer took the salute and was invested with the Order of the Crown Cork. If I knew the Dutch for yoiks, I'd shout here, but I don't know what it is. "Let's have a tiddly at the fountain" might have been a popular song had we not been on our way to Tuborgs brewery. If this fountain had been lager, it would have been a different story. First to arrive at the Tuborgs dispensary were Carlton Dyer and Russell Haberling, in a car which they had forcibly borrowed, and that's putting it politely. Such a car could only belong to a man of Brewster's millions. And so the boys went into the brewery. Well, let's follow them, and we'll see what they saw, even if we didn't do as they did. For there were several casualties that day on the bottle field. Well, everything the brewery was lovely, everything. Even the bottles had been trained to move in perfect formation. First they had their necks washed and their insides cleaned up, and then everyone had to undergo an inspection. The sight of so many empty bottles excited an enormous thirst in some of our staunchest inebriates, who were forcibly compelled to control their emotion until later. Here we are a stage further. The Munich goes round and round and it comes out beer. Or drink Tuborg only with thine eyes, at least for the present. No, these are not cockles. They are the tantalizing things that go on the top of bottles just to prolong your thirst for a wee while. No, then this is not a car radio either. Or a fruit machine, so there's no jackpot. It's the stopper sorter. I couldn't say that when I was there. You'll notice nothing is touched by hand, although later on it was necessary to convey the lager to the lips by manual labour with the little finger extended in the correct fashion. Naturally, Tuborg has to be labelled, so that there is no question of Tuborg or not Tuborg, and then an arm shoots up and grabs a bottle. I think it's Carlton Dyer's arm. Anyway, his clutching hand never misses. There it goes. Well, by this time, most of the bottles are suffering from the blind staggers, and unsteadily, shoulder to shoulder, they join their companions, having safely navigated the bottleneck. By this time, Philco had become Fulco, and the annual cruise had become the annual booze. In this group outside the brewery, we see our host, Einar Desso, Carl, Majorette, Russell Haberling, and Tommy Christie, all in the very best of spirits. I don't know who this is on the cart, but he's petrified, whoever he is. Ah, Liverpool and London meet. Frank Grindrod, L.A. Clark. And if that isn't Alan, I'll eat my hat. And who's this? Ted Baker. Oh, well, another casualty. He's decided to go on the wagon for good and all. A resolution he kept for exactly half an hour. Now then, out of the way, you on that bike. Take it back, your hour's up. Lunch at Hornbeck was now indicated. And this balcony scene is not from Romeo and Juliet. Our roaming Romeos did not meet their Juliets until later. Paul Brewster got busy here with his hip pocket camera, and although the results were in the negative, he was positively astounded when he saw them. The entire population of Hornbeck, including Mr. Wilcox of Blackpool, turned out to see this strange foreign contingent. They stared and stared and laughed and laughed and laughed. And from the nearby beach came crowds in shorts, slips, mid-off, and square leg. General holiday was declared so that everyone could look at these horrible examples from over the sea. But before long they found we were quite harmless, and friendly relations were established. Exactly how friendly they became cannot possibly be mentioned in this commentary. Oh, this girl looks rather sweet on her bicycle made for one, doesn't she? Yes, and there were others too, plenty of them. At least Gondolia Paddy thought so until the lady exclaimed, "Oh, you Nazi man." And the gallant captain went all over Hitler at once. In other words, he went so far and no further. Fortunately, this was the only occasion on which it was said you can't do that there here. And on the following days, everybody was doing that there all over the place. In fact, we had the complete freedom of Copenhagen and its environgs. And here are some of the environgs, and very nice too. All right, I saw first. Bathing bells were ringing all over the place, most of them ringing wet as they emerged like Venus from the foam or Psyche from the swim. Paul got to work again, taking close-ups at very close quarters, and the quarters were good. I think the initials PB must stand for Pocket Brownie, but alas, we cannot show all his snaps, not even on an asbestos screen. Now then, sit tight, boys. The first one making a rush for the screen will be chucked out. Isn't she nice? And who have we here? Well, if it isn't Pansy Van Ackerpen and her pet Peak. I notice Charlie Johnson's gone all red. Now, where have I seen that face before? Well, we combed this speech pretty thoroughly, even interrupting one or two Great Danes who were not to be outdone by some of the great lovers of our party. Alas, alas, the ozone combined with all that had gone before proved too much for several of our most active members, some of whom slumbered on the sand or snored on the shore. Even Ted Baker lay prostrate on the prom. As I've said before, even our cameramen wilted as our stay in Copenhagen drew to a close, so we can't show everything we did. And here we are once more on the Rampura, making up for lack of sleep and full of the good time we all had. All except the deck tennis players, who played so much they wore their feet out and had to turn their ankles up at the end. Yes, there they are, they're at it again, doing their toss-em and miss-em act all day long, especially L.A. Clark and Sid Gray, undefeated champions of the scuppers. Umpiring is Walter Huey from Dublin, and what a great fighter he is. Well, these deck games are certainly very, very good, and they revived us after our strenuous Danish days, especially the blindfold whistling race. By this time we were used to being blind, having wetted our whistles so often, and the race was keenly contested, I should say. Next came a fancy dress tug of war, more fancy than dress in some cases. Anyway, the Middlesbrough maulers won easily. At least they all fell down together and tried to strangle themselves with their own rope, in which pastime they were assisted by their rivals. Oh, more fancy dress. Well, now, just look at Sevitt, the Val villain from Dublin. And in case one isn't enough, there are two Hitlers, Adolf and Adolf, two minds with a single moustache. Popeye the Sailor Man has been at the spinach again, and is trying his He-Man stuff with Minnie the Mermaid. And hello, it's Dr. Voronoff, the gland old man himself, who puts new ideas into old chassis. The Holy Fry heard a few secrets, but freely forgave this sinner for his exploits in Copenhagen, on condition he didn't try and do the same in England. Oh, he looks bad, doesn't he? Now, this group isn't in fancy dress, it's the car radio gang. Great lads, every one of them, and full of the Philco feeling. They're led by Alan Knight and seconded by Keith Drew. Seeley Lane, Jim Morgan, and Bert Mackey from Aberdeen are the chefs and chiefs of the Scottish clan. All Jock Tamson's bands, although they've left their kilts behind on this occasion. Well, now we're near home, all refreshed and rejuvenated by the finest cruise that ever happened. A real good time amongst real good fellows. And so as we approached England, there was one final toast drunk with acclamation by everybody. Here's to the next time.
Skønt hvor vi nok til at tage os